Come, let us explore the 5 things I wish I knew before choosing a meditation teacher. Together, let us relaxingly recite. With so many lamas and authors offering to teach us how to meditate, often for a substantial fee, how are we to know upon which teacher or technique we should rely? Should we rely upon the teacher with the greatest beauty, fame, popularity, acclaim, wealth, resume, credentials, or letters of recommendation? No, no, and no. The proof of the pudding is in the tasting, and we test the effectiveness of a teacher's guidance in the laboratory of our body and mind. First, we find a teacher, regardless of gender, age, or nationality, and request instruction. We then enthusiastically practice the technique we are given for at least 5 minutes once every 12 hours or so for 7 consecutive days. Note, if we're not up to the task of practicing thusly, then the selection of a teacher is simply not our biggest problem. After the conclusion of the second practice of on the 7th day, we venerably gaze within and ask, has this week of practice increased my peace and love? If yes, then mazel tov, you found a teacher from whom you could benefit. If not, then follow up with that teacher. If they won't or can't help you, then to hell with them. Find a better teacher for you at this time. No, the test of a teacher's wisdom is not whether their teachings align with either our preconceptions or what we've been previously taught. For such a metric will only ensure that we never grow beyond where we are at right now. And for goodness sake, let us not put ourselves in the hands of a greedy fool who will sell us the Buddha's teachings. For although optional donations could be lovely, the greatest offering we could make is simply the enthusiastic application of a teacher's instructions. If we wish to follow in the footsteps of the Buddha, be he real or merely archetypical, then we must bring a scientist's curiosity and enthusiasm to be methodical into our spiritual journey. If it sounds inconvenient and maybe even a little scary, there's probably a very good reason for that. But is it worth the inconvenience? The Buddha thought so. This is why Gautama devoted his talents and time to teaching mindfulness and meditation. Having completed the opening lesson, it's time now to shift gears. It is Luke Skywalker Friday evening. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is the Dzogchen Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I have harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I could become your personal, nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to Meditate Like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. For the remainder of this evening's live stream, let's work exclusively with the latest iteration of a very easy meditation practice text, or sadhana, if you're nasty. Sturgeon's law reminds us that 90% of everything sucks. Mathematically, that means only about 10% of folks are on the path of Yin's spiritual matriarchy, the path of being flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Which means the remainder, the majority, think it's a fabulous idea to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. Therefore, it should come as very little surprise that the majority of teachers implore their students to actively train in the concentration and in active concentration and contemplation. Now, the only way to do that is to rely upon specific, or I should say, there's a better word for it. To rely upon the discrete neural pathways such as those found in either the medial or dorsolateral prefrontal cortices. Now, the problem is when we overwork this area of our brain, it triggers our amygdala, which is the seat of both anxiety and aggression, which are, of course, are the opposites of the peace and love we hope to get from meditation. Fortunately, these two regions are not the only parts of our central nervous system. For instance, every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the sympathetic nervous system ensconced within the middle third of our spinal cord. This bad boy has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly notice mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. So instead of picking and choosing what to notice, we are open to the full spectrum of human experience, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. But what are we to do with that which we notice? Every time we exhale, we've evolved to automatically access the parasympathetic nervous system, divided between the lower third and the upper third of that same spinal cord. This in turn has evolved to help us to physically relax and mentally release to such a degree that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel fleetingly less stressful, less permanent, and even less defining. Let us sit ourselves in a comfortable and sustainable manner, even if our flexibility reduces our posture to that which is asymmetric and ungainly. Practice at least 5 minutes every 12 hours or so, and within a week or two, our body will remember how we sat as children. The most efficient way for us to cooperate with our sympathetic as well as parasympathetic nervous systems is for us to silently and mentally recite the phrase, "these objects," as we inhale, and silently and mentally recite the phrase, "always change," during our exhalation. Remember, the moment you have a specific question about Buddhist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. For I check for questions approximately every 10 minutes or so. Let's dig in. Now, of course, the one-syllable version of this same exercise would be these change. Okay, it looks like we have a question. So Mellow Yellow wrote, hello. As some like Ajahn Khan described the various stages of meditation, how do we keep our various experiences in perspective without being seduced by or stumbling over them? Excellent question. Let's see, gotta tap the right button here. So let's go over to 4. Okay, so the late Ajahn Khan, I never had the opportunity to meet him. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that he received the best education he could and tried his best to help people. We don't all have the same educational opportunities. And so the test of a teaching is not which teacher said what. The test of a teaching is the test of a teaching are the effects generated by the teaching on our body and mind. The whole idea of stages on the path of concentration is a wonderful example of patriarchy and elitism and control and rigidity. Remember, the Buddha taught in the penultimate passage of the Satipatthana Sutta that full enlightenment was possible to master in as little as 7 days. The Buddha taught a very simple method as outlined by the 7 enlightenment factors. The 7th enlightenment factor, and let me turn over to button 9 real quick, reminds us that every time oopsie, wrong button. That every time we inhale, we are wired to notice. Rephrase this again. Every time we inhale, and to use a phrase echoed by the Pali, every time we inhale, every time our air coalesces within our lungs, every time our air concentrates in our lungs, it tickles our sympathetic nervous system, helping us to notice, practice the sati, which is the first enlightenment factor that helps us to notice vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. This vulnerability and this randomness is echoed by the second enlightenment factor, which is investigation, which is the opposite of being timid and self-protecting, and instead being completely bold to wherever we are led in the present moment, whether it is someplace pleasurable, painful, interesting, boring, glorious, or grotesque. The third enlightenment factor is energy, which could be described as enthusiasm, directly and indirectly is a reminder that we need to live our life in a way that gives us the energy, the physical and mental energy we need. We need to for instance, getting enough water, getting enough rest, getting fruits and vegetables. These will help us to maintain the energy we need. The fourth enlightenment factor is joy. When we get stuck in concentration, in the 8 or 9 jhanas of concentration, we become very cranky, very anxious, the opposite of joyful. However, when we cooperate with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems to notice and relax, remember relaxation is the sixth enlightenment factor, in harmony with our mindfulness and meditation, then that joy becomes spontaneous and effortless and automatic. The seventh enlightenment factor is the balance of equanimity. How does that work? Every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever aversion or avarice, whatever dread or desire, whatever hope or fear we notice during our inhalation, can feel as if it was relaxing into the one taste of non-graspability, the one taste of impermanence. It is, and that is the midpoint between all extremes. Yes, as we breathe in, we notice whatever randomly occurs in our body or mind. But as we relax, we are automatically returned to the midpoint, the balance point of impermanence or non-graspability or birthlessness or whatever synonym makes you happy. And so our job is not to chase anything. Our job is not to flee anything. Our job is to notice passively as we breathe in and to relax as we breathe out. So what I'm going to do is real quick is I'm going to tap button 8 yet again. Okay, maybe that's why I was actually becoming depressed the more I meditated. Too much strain, too much expectation because of what I've read. You're welcome. So you are not the first person to have that happen, so please do not blame yourself. Want to tap button on 9 again and go over here. So one of the sad things is that whether people use concentration or whether people use visualization, when they try to fight their brain, they more often than not exhaust their prefrontal cortex, which can increase the probability of them experiencing many of the symptoms of depression. Additionally, it can trigger the amygdala, which is the seat of both anxiety and aggression. So the dark irony is that when we follow the advice of patriarchy, it takes us further away from peace and further away from love. Thank you very much for participating. Let's continue. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 12 hours, I would very much like to return to tomorrow's morning meditation class, as well as group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.